to this computer. Okay, cool. We are live now. Yeah, that's Rosie just jumped on. Rosie, thanks for jumping on. I didn't know.
Hi, Rosie.
Today. Rosie, we have a real life Aussie in our presence. So. Hey, Rosie, can you hear us? Oh, I see that her microphone. I don't even know if. Oh, she's connecting to audio.
Right? It's connecting now.
Yeah. There we go.
We'll do it again.
Rosie.
Hey, Rosie.
Okay, I got audio now.
Hey, Rosie.
G'day.
Did I tell you that our special guest today is a real live Aussie?
All right.
G'day. How are ya?
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, Rosie.
He's phoning in from Sydney, Australia today. So it's May 6th for him. So we know that the world doesn't end on the 6th because he's already living.
I knew that. Somehow I already knew that.
So, but yeah. So Dan, I spoke to him. I met him on the door-to-door knocking page. I was looking for people who'd be willing to come talk to our team. People who either had an interesting story or some kind of value to add. And so Dan responded, and I called him last week just to talk with him. And he's got a pretty interesting life story. And he's been the #1 sales rep in all of Australia for his company for the last, how many years has it been?
I've done 2 years. 2 years, #1.
Last 2 years. He's 28 years old. One of the things I found most interesting about your story was, I think it was when you were 23, your parents took out a massive loan using your credit. And
when I was 18.
When you were 18, okay.
Yeah.
And when they split up, neither of them wanted to pay back the loan. It was a couple $100,000 you were saying?
It was that specific loan was like $23,000, but I also had a mortgage on top of that.
Okay.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, right. And at 18, when you're, making minimum wage, whatever the wages were for an 18-year-old, definitely not enough to pay it off. And so he was starting to see himself come in over his head. And so jumped around. I don't want to steal your thunder. I'd love to let you introduce.
No, go for it, man. Go for it.
But anyways, he dug himself out of all this debt. He's making over 6 figures every year for the last 5 years. And I asked him, hey, what's your strength? What do you feel like makes you different? And he said that he's really good at asking for money from the affluent, which I think is what's an awesome skill that is maybe lacking with a lot of door-to-door people. A lot of folks, I think, are looking for the low-hanging fruit, easy to talk to people. Less affluent sometimes are easier to close, even though they might not have as good credit. So I thought there was a lot of value to be added there. And he has a specific way that he goes about it, where he determines how he mirrors people. So anyways, I'll let you take it from here. I don't want to, like I said, steal too much of your thunder, but why don't you give us just a little bit of background about yourself and anything that I didn't cover, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the introduction. G'day, guys. So yeah, Benny pretty much nailed it on the head. I've been working in sales for 5 years now, going door to door, spent a bit of time doing business to business as well. My background, nothing to do with sales. I was a cabinet maker for 3.5 years, high school dropout. After the global financial crisis hit here in Australia, kind of took me out of the trade work side of things, and I got into driving trucks. So then I was a truck driver around Australia for 4 years as well, and basically got to the point where, although I was going everywhere, I didn't really seem to be going anywhere. So I actually got fired from that job and then kind of fell into sales, went on the job seeking website here in Australia and just applied for everything. And the first bunch that got back to me was a door-to-door sales job. So as Benny said, here in Australia, especially in the industry that I work in, we do target people with money. And starting out, that was something that did, kind of freak me out a little bit, because although you can't really tell with what I'm wearing right now, I am covered in tattoos. I used to have big 20 mil holes in my ears. My lip was pierced as well. I look like a bit of a punk. So going and knocking on homes that were worth, 15, 20, $30 million, to ask these people to donate to a charity was, something that was quite, nerve wracking for myself. But the way I kind of got around it was the thing that's always interested me about sales was the fact that it is a people's game. We know that. And the way I found it was that the more I learnt about people, the psychology of sales and people, then the better I was going to do. So, I like to read. That's where I focused all my effort, was in the actual psychology of how sales works and how people make decisions and how people like people and how they make up their mind. And I guess the thing that kind of interested me about the people that I was speaking to was I wasn't intimidated by them because I wanted to be them. So I had that level of interest in these people straight away, like knocking on or buzzing a $30 million home. It's like, what have these guys done? What questions can I ask these people that can help me? And that's kind of the approach that I took to it. So basically going from there, like I wanted to speak to you guys today about how I've actually learned to read and adapt to people. I don't know if you guys have you guys ever like looked into like behavioral styles, personality styles, that traits, that sort of thing before?
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Rich had an interesting training. You didn't do the training though, Rich, right? You just heard it was it from Josh? The different, like the owl,
We did that. We took that little questionnaire and found out like whether or not we were owls, tigers, or bull, or like a goat, I think it was.
Yeah, different customer styles. Like the owl tends to be more analytical and wants to think
Research.
Yeah.
right. And this is, I think, a little bit about what he's getting at. It's somewhat of a spectrum, but yeah, I mean, definitely not maybe as much on the psychological side as you. We'd love to hear what you have to share. We focus on a lot of the psychology of, logic versus emotion, and how we believe that people don't really buy on logic. They buy on
absolutely
emotional sales.
And they back it up with logic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's, arguably what I always found, especially on the doors when you're knocking on someone's door, is that the first sale that you have to make is yourself. Yeah, people have to like you before they're going to even bother listening to you. And they're going to make that decision in like a split second as to whether or not they like you and want to give you their time of day. So what I basically found in like through my experience and what I've learned is that all like the kind of teachings from our parents and our teachers of how to communicate and get along with people, they were kind of like half-baked truths. You guys know the golden rule?
Yeah, so treat others as you want to be treated, right?
Yeah. So there is a problem with that, treating others how you want to be treated. I actually got a question for you. What is like the stereotypical Californian? You guys are in Cali, yeah?
Benny, Rosie, and Bill are, and Sheldon.
Yeah.
And then
so what's like your?
North Carolina. He's on the East Coast, so we're actually on two different coasts. But
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah, stereotypical. I don't know. That's hard to say. Like the stereotypes, I think, are a lot different than the actual.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sheldon. What would you say? Can you unmute yourself? Do you have anything to add there? Here, I'll unmute you.
I always hear them say that, like when you go somewhere else, it feels like they're a lot nicer other places than they are in California. And I think if you go to different places, I mean, for us, when we sell solar, it's a lot easier to sell in the hood than it is to go like into a nice neighborhood, because a nice neighborhood doesn't care to save $100 on their electricity bill, but you go into the hood and they're down to save $25 if they can do nothing to it. So I feel like 100%. You get the both of ends of the spectrum too.
Yeah. With what would you say is like, in Australia, like the stereotypical Australian is like, laid back, doesn't really care too much about much, loves a beer, loves kicking the footy around, that sort of thing. So what would you say is like your typical Californian?
I think we're all, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I think for Southern California, it's so different because like we have everything. I mean, if you go to Orange County, it's kind of like, you know, rich white people. You go
Yeah.
more northern, it's kind of like redneck white people. Like Southern California, to me, I mean, I could be wrong, but I know all the areas, and they're all absolutely so different from everything else.
Wow. So if you like, obviously you've given me your like aliases, or not aliases, like, yeah, like avatars of what certain people are like around certain areas of California. And you guys know that because you've worked there for so long. If you see, you know how to treat these people, but if you were to go to New York and treat someone in New York the same way, do you think that would connect, or do you think it would be a little bit off?
I feel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it would be somewhat of a variance, right? A learning curve to learn.
When I ran
short times.
When I ran my own team for credit card processing, and I had reps in Hawaii, Hilo, and all that. If my rep didn't have an 808 number, the Hawaiian guys wouldn't deal with them.
Yeah, so I can definitely give you an example because I actually sold in California as well as North Carolina. And here's one key difference that I noticed was in California, solar is just wham, bam. Like it's dime a dozen. There's installers all over the place. You can't throw a rock without hitting a solar installer or a solar company. And in North Carolina, although it's the second largest state for solar, they don't have as many residential rooftop installers. And so some of the first installers that we met that are local to North Carolina were like, you know, it's different here. You know, you got to take it easier. It's a slower process. You know, we're more personal. We're more personable. We don't, you know.
And the homeowners don't save as much.
Yeah, definitely.
They're all been sticking with the status quo. They're like, well, this is just the way it is, and it's a little more laid back. It's a little bit, with some of them, it's a little bit slower process. And so, like you said, you sort of have to accommodate even with customers because it's a newer concept. Then in California and North Carolina, we're having to more educate them about, hey, this is how solar works, versus in California, they already know sort of how it works. Now let's just show you some of the savings. And so it's sort of different processes what we focus on a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Benny and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but like California, I feel like they've been bombarded with it. They've seen it everywhere. So now they're finally like, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. When we went to Chicago, we would get like 11 leads a day, and every single one of them, once you tell them they're going to save 30%, they're like, okay, well, we don't want to be the first ones to do it, but okay, solar's so new, but yeah, thank you for letting us know how to get free solar. And it's like, what do you mean the first people that does it? It's like you couldn't twist their arm enough. Yeah,
you're right about that. So Sheldon and Rich and I, and Alex, who's not on this call, we went and checked out Chicago. So yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, same kind of thing. Every market is going to have a different pace to it for sure. So
100%. And that's the thing. What I found is that like people want to be treated the way that they want to be treated. They don't want to be treated the way that you want to be treated, because the thing is we're all different, you know, and you do find in certain areas, you're going to find similar kinds of people. I don't know, that just kind of all congregate to one area, but the better you get at adapting to different kinds of people, the bigger your market gets. What I found when I first started in sales was that those rich people, I couldn't sell to them because I couldn't adapt to them. You know, here in Australia, we have a lot of Chinese, and now what I call a challenge door. You know, do you guys have those people as well? There's this one type of person that you just cannot sell to.
North Carolina, that's mostly Indians.
Yeah.
People have a hard time selling to Indians because they not only do they crunch the numbers, they do the research, and then it can even make sense, and they'll still be like, yeah, no, I don't think this is for me. And it's like, what? You even just told yourself that it was for you, but you still don't want it.
So I was going to say the same thing about the Indians, but a different example on my end is you walk in, all the lights are off, and it's super hot in their house, and you're like, shoot, like they use no electricity whatsoever. They bring you their bill, and it's like $27, and you're like,
Wow.
Okay, but still, it was still when you do help them. Yes, we had one Indian in Chicago, me and Alex, and he was like, "Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a spreadsheet. I'm gonna call 11 other people." Literally said 11 other people. Put them all in a spreadsheet, and they give us a call back.
Oh my, that's insane.
I had an Indian guy that sounded interested, and he just like was like, "Yeah, I want to talk to my family about it, and I have like 2 brothers and 1 sister. They own a home too, so if I do it, they'll do it." And then all of a sudden, all because I couldn't get the Duke rebate for him, couldn't guarantee it to him, he decided that he didn't want to do it.
So what I learned, what I've found is what kind of, takes you to being a really professional salesperson is putting in the effort and the focus to getting really, really good at selling to anyone. Yeah. Now those markets that you struggle to sell to, it's not their fault. It's our fault as a salesperson because we can't connect to them on their level and sell to them the way they want to be sold. One thing that I've always kind of found was that if something isn't working, stop doing it. Try something else. What I want to kind of teach you guys today is, the main types of behavior.
Dan, welcome back.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
for a second then.
That was weird.
Yeah. Can you hear me all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to teach you guys what the behavior styles are, but also how to read them and how to adapt to them as well, because everyone's different. Everyone likes to buy differently. Everyone likes to be spoken to differently. Everyone especially likes to be sold to differently as well. So does that sound good?
Yeah, for sure. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So at some point, I'm going to share my screen as well because I've got a bit of stuff written down. I tried to do up a keynote slideshow, but it took a long time. I didn't get it quite finished. So, but basically, you guys, some of you have heard about the different behavior styles and that kind of thing before. It's been studied for thousands and thousands of years. Like Hippocrates outlined that there was 4 temperaments. There's sanguine, phlegmatic, melancholic, and choleric. And he did those studies 4 decades before the birth of Christ. So it's been something that's been studied for a bloody long time. Now, when I say behavior, I don't mean personality, because personality is something that's like really ingrained in a human being, and that's the sort of thing that takes a very, very long time for someone to change. But behaviors change like that. Someone's behavior when you first meet them might be extremely different to when you follow up with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're
So,
saying.
cool. The four behavioral types are, you've got directors, you've got socializers, you've got thinkers, and you've got relators. All right, now you guys have probably heard all of these said in multiple different names. Different names have been thrown around for years and years and years. You've got the disc profile, the colors, the animals, all that sort of thing. It's all pretty much the same kind of thing, but it's really understanding who those people are. Yeah, because remember, in sales, you don't matter. In sales, all that matters is your customer and your ability to give them what they want. So as I'm going to kind of describe each one as well, you guys are probably going to hear things that you're like, oh, he's talking about me, or you're going to be able to think of people that that you kind of fit the bill with them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so you can see a few things.
You said director, socializer, thinker, and what else?
Relators.
Relator. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys see this all right?
Yep.
Cool. So with your directors, I've broken it down into a few different styles of their behavior, areas of their behavior, so you get a really good idea of who they are. I've got their overall description. I've got their typical social behavior, and their most common professions and their customer traits as well. So I'll run through these and have a think. If I say one that you feel is you, let me know as we go along. So with your directors, they're what are known as the initiators. They're the people that get things done. Their overall traits are people that need to be in control. They don't like stalling. They definitely don't like incompetence. They're generally quick to act and make decisions. They think practically and logically, not theoretically and hypothetically. They want the facts highlighted. They're the people that strive for results. They like changes. They'd rather delegate the work that's like fiddly and detailed. They'd rather have someone else do that. They don't have a very high tolerance for other people's feelings and their attitudes and other people's advice. They'd rather kind of work it out themselves. They love to be recognized for their results and their accomplishments. They're definitely not afraid to argue, and they don't really avoid conflict. They'll kind of cut it off at the source. They're more logic and facts over emotions and feelings. Now, where you'll typically find them in a social behavior kind of style is they love competing in almost everything. Particularly, they'll participate in games and contests where they can win. They always want to know the purpose of a function. When they're at parties and that kind of thing, they're the people that are always talking business. They don't readily share their feelings. And when you first meet them, it's likely to be a very firm handshake and a straightforward approach. Now, there's a lot here. I can actually email all these notes to you as well so that you can each go through them and kind of write your notes from there if I go too quickly. What excites a director is action. And their greatest asset is that they want to outperform anyone. Right, their greatest failing is that they can't stand weakness, especially in themselves and other people. And their greatest fear is people thinking of them as being soft. Now, where you'll mostly find these people, they're president, CEO, or formally recognized leaders, politicians, law enforcement officers, military officers, executives, managers, entrepreneurs, general contractors, and coaches. Now, customer traits, they make their decisions pretty quickly when they're presented with the facts that back up what you're saying. They want to see the bottom line impact of the product or the service solution. They want you to provide enough detail, but not too much detail, so that they can trust you with your competence to actually handle his or her business. They are very businesslike. They're straightforward and to the point. They expect their goals and concerns to be taken seriously. They respect salespeople who look, act, and talk professionally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So, if you're a salesperson approaching this person, you want to look, sound, act professional. I mean, you always want to, but in this case, this is what they're very rigid in their expectations, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They're very to the point. They want the facts. They don't really care how you feel. They just want to know how this is going to help them, solve their problem or make more money, etc. The further traits of customers that are directors is that they want to know how quickly and efficiently your product or service can solve their problems. They don't want to have a detailed and lengthy explanation. They will ask detailed questions more as a test of your ability and your credibility. Have you guys ever met a customer like that before? You know that they're not asking the question for the knowledge, they're just testing you. Yeah,
absolutely.
They love the products that are the best. They expect results right now, and they aren't massively interested in building a relationship. They don't want to waste their time, in chit chat. So does that sound like anyone here?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I definitely see traits of myself in here, but I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say overall, like that.
Yeah.
I think
So
when it spectrum there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to these behavioral styles, what you'll find is that no one is ever. It's only like 3% of the population is just one. People are usually mainly one with an aspect of another. Now, I have a friend of mine who's a socializer. I'll go through these, and you probably have heaps of friends that are the same. Some of you guys are probably even socializers as well. And he's one of the 3% of the population that they call a socializing socializer. So he's a through and through socializer. Myself, I'm what they call a socializer, but I have like the subcategory of a director. I have all these traits of a socializer, but I will also, I want shit done now. I want the facts. Don't bother giving me the details, that kind of thing. So with your socializers, they are what they call talkers. They crave interaction and human contact. They're very enthusiastic and expressive. And they have lively actions. They're spontaneous. They do care about the approval of other people as well. They're very emotion-based decision makers, big picture thinkers. They'll get bored of the details. They like changes and innovations. They don't like conflict so much. They maintain a positive, optimistic attitude towards life. We socializers generally exaggerate quite a bit to, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. We tend to dream out loud and get others caught up in our dreams as well. And we do typically, jump from one activity to the other as well. The social behavior is we like to be liked and admired. Fear of public humiliation, naturally warm and expressive, enthusiastic. We'll discuss most subjects regardless of how distant or casual the relationship is. We perceive our life according to our feelings, naturally discuss emotions with anyone, and we'll choose our associates, friends by gut instinct and trial and error. What excites socializers is tossing ideas around. The greatest asset is that they're very fun to be around. The greatest failing is that they're very erratic. And the greatest fear is not being liked. And the most common professions are customer relations, public relations, entertainment, could be singing, reporting, acting, public speaking, a professional host or an MC at a club, recreational director, politicians, salespeople, and teachers. So customer traits is that if something excites them, they'll make decisions really quickly. Now, they don't like data and details about features. They'll listen intently to benefits, can often see benefits before you even point them out. They like to be complimented for their quick thinking and made to feel unique. Now, the key with socializers is if they start talking about what you're selling, just let them speak, because quite often they'll just sell themselves on what you're talking about. You guys have probably met someone like that before. Typically a very, very easy sale. They love fun and creativity in the buying and selling process. They love to be made laugh. They want to get to know the salesperson personally. These are the people that you meet at the door that start asking you questions about you and really wanting to get to know you. They need a simple and easy sales process. If things start getting complicated, they'll back off pretty quickly. They love to say yes and just have everything else taken care of for them. They're the kind of people that if they love your product and they're satisfied with it, they'll help sell it to other people as well. Now, does those traits kind of fit anyone here?
Yeah,
Little.
What was that?
James, you were saying something?
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I would fall more into this list than director, I would say for sure. Yeah,
100%. That's it. Like I am all of that with the director tendencies as well. So with thinkers are your more logical people. They're the people that they don't want to know your feelings. They don't want to know your emotions. They just want the facts, the data, and they want to be left alone to go and figure it out by themselves. They like to be right and correct. They'll ask questions about specific details. They need to understand 100% the process. They're very, very cautious decision makers. They like to be admired for their accuracy. They like problem-solving methods and approaches. Now, typical social behavior is that they're the more quiet and observant people. They like to collect information before entering a relationship. Discreet and tactful, not likely to tell secrets or the naked truth. guarded. They prefer a small group of friends and work associates. What excites your thinkers is reason. Their greatest asset is high quality work. Their greatest failing is that they are often too critical, and their greatest fear is irrationality. Most common professions for a thinker, you'll find they're forecasters, either political forecasters or weather forecasters. They're critics, engineers, research scientists, data analysts, accountants, auditors, architects, artists, inventors, college professors, veterinarians, technicians, and mechanics. Now, the customer traits of the thinkers, these are the ones that I think most people, especially me, because we're polar opposites, I do struggle to sell to thinkers sometimes because of the time that they need. Now, their customer traits is that they need information and specific data to make a decision. So if you have any graphs or charts or anything that they can hold and see, they're the best to use for these people. They want to understand the entire sales process. They need time to evaluate. They don't want to feel rushed at all. They respond positively to graphs and charts. All information should be presented well organized and logically. They want things that minimize their buying risk, such as guarantees, free trials, that kind of thing. They need to respect and trust the salesperson. That's a massive one for them. They're the easiest style to identify as well because of their low-key, measured, deliberate, and reserved behaviors. If they seem too much enthusiasm or intensity from the salesperson, they'll back off because they find it as unnecessary and distracting and quite often intimidating as well. Now, relators. Oh, lost it. There we go. Relators are, they're the really, really easy people to get along with. Yeah, now the things that are important to relators are stability. Stability is a massive driver for relators, and most of the decisions that they'll make are to avoid risk and to increase their stability. They like to think things through in an orderly manner. They want documentation and facts. It needs to be personal with a relator. They need to know the step-by-step sequence. They work slowly but cohesively with others. They're always trying to accommodate other people. They love teamwork. They love security and a sense of belonging. They want to know that they're appreciated. Relators, they say, are the best employees because they're the kind of people that just want everyone to be happy and they won't speak out. If they feel that anything that they could say could hurt the feelings of another person, they just won't even bother. The typical social behavior is that they love building ongoing relationships with a small group of people. They want to be involved in and identified with their group, relating to others on a one-on-one basis, preferably with predictable role behavior by each person. More casual, low-key, amiable relationships, giving and then receiving attention, seeking stability in their lives through practices such as conformity. Let me zoom out a little bit. That was a minute for that, yeah. And then what excites them is productive, predictable routine. Their greatest strength is that they're really, really easy to get along with. The greatest failing is that they're pretty timid sometimes. The greatest fear for the relators is change. So most common professions that you'll find them in are financial services, social workers, family doctors or nurses, psychologists or counselors, residential or community services, teachers, professors, personal assistants or secretaries, insurance agents or customer service representatives. Now, the traits of one of these people when you knock on their door is that they need to have a relationship of personal assurances and trust before they'll make a decision. They like to run everything past their buying committee to make sure that they're making the right decision. Never in a hurry to make a purchase. They need to be at ease and trust the salesperson. They want the salesperson to listen to them and be sensitive to their needs and situational requirements. They remain loyal to a salesperson as well. So as I'm going through this stuff with you guys, can you hear can you see customers that you've dealt with before?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see there's common traits among, just different things. And it's not really, I don't really find one customer as like one dead set one. It's sort of like us as salespeople. We're more of a blend of a few, like
100%.
yourself, Dan. I think I see myself as more of a socializer, as well as a little bit, on the director side. I like to get things done. I like to also communicate with people. I like building those relationships. And I find having a blend and being adaptable to people and to be able to sort of adapt to their personalities really helps us as salespeople, because that helps us to connect. If you go in there and you're and the analogy of what we do with the animal analogy is, you got the bull running up against an owl, they're just clashing, or you got a tiger and a bull, and sort of almost like a relator and a socializer going at it, and they're not relating with each other, and they're not understanding each other, and one's probably just talking too much, not listening, while the other is just wanting someone to listen to them. And if we just take a second, sort of see how our customers are, and I think, and we've done some trainings on this, taking that time at the beginning to ask them a few questions, find out who they are, find out a little bit about themselves, and you'll start to see sort of their personalities. Sometimes it's a little easier in person to do that than it is on some of these virtual calls that we've done. But just even with that, sort of keying in on our senses and seeing how these people are. Today, the deal I closed today, he was, by the end of it, he was very personable, very relatable. Talking about, we got talking about kids. We both have kids about the same age. We got laughing, and at the end, it was pretty much a no-brainer for him. He's like, all right, so do we sign some documents and stuff? And I'm like, all right, you took the words out of my mouth. All right, let's go forward with this. And but it's a good thing to always keep our radars up and find out who these people are, how to act, and not that we're being fake, we're just being adaptable, I think.
That's the thing. And that's the whole point of adaptability, is it's not like, by all means, if you're adapting to people to create a win-lose situation where you win and the other person loses, that's manipulation. But if you're using your adapting skills to not change who you are, but change the way that you express yourself so that it communicates better with the person you're speaking with, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, now there is a fine line. Some people will learn this stuff and they'll go and manipulate people all their lives, and get people to do things that they don't want to do, and convince people to do stuff, and create those win-lose situations. But the idea of getting really good at adapting is, it's being you, but changing the way you express you so that it's more comfortable for the person you're speaking with. Now, with those behaviors that I've kind of gone through now, have you guys ever seen the grid that's right here at the moment?
No, I haven't seen that before.
So now that you kind of know, and those traits, you've probably heard them before. Now I want you to teach you how to actually tell who someone is straight away. Yeah, so you'll see here, you've got your socializers and directors. And on this side, you've got the thinkers and the relators. Now you've got two axes here and here. You've got more direct people, which is your socializers and directors. Think of those as more extrovert. And then you've got the more indirect people, which is your thinkers and your relators. Now on this side, you've got people who are guarded, right? Guarded meaning they're not open, basically. They don't really like talking about their feelings and their emotions. They just want to get down to business. These people here, a lot more open. That's why your socializers typically, I will talk about my personal feelings to anyone. I don't care, as long as they listen. Relators are the same, but as you can see, they're more on the indirect side. They're not so easy going with it. Now, I want to give you guys two questions that you can ask yourself when meeting a customer that's going to tell you exactly where these guys sit. Now, the first one is on their physical behavior. Now, this is something that you can see. The question you want to ask is this person direct or indirect? Now, direct behavior at the door, for example, is someone who might come straight out the door. They might come up and shake your hand and ask you how you are and ask you what you're doing. We all know that the more direct people. And indirect people are people that might just open the door a little bit, be a little bit shy, a little bit skeptical about you being at their door. Now, remember, I'm not talking about personality. I'm talking about behavior. Yeah, like Richard was saying before, that phone call that he had today didn't start out that way, but by the end of it, they were best mates. That's what I mean about adjusting yourself to their behavior. Okay, so if you have someone come to the door and you can ask that question, is this person direct or indirect? If they're direct, that wipes half of these off the board. So you know that this customer is either going to be a socializer or a director. Now, the second question you want to ask is, what are they saying? Now, this isn't stuff you see. This is stuff that you hear. Yeah, are they? And I've got a list here as well of direct behaviors and indirect behaviors. The things that you hear are, there we go. Guarded behaviors prefer to keep things quiet. They'd rather get straight down to business. Reserved facial expressions. Conversation stays on the subject. Whereas open behaviors, they're easy to share and discuss personal feelings. Conversation easily strays from the topic. Typically things like, oh, yeah, I feel like this versus it could be this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So over time, you just get really good at, if you can answer those two questions, you can kind of pinpoint what quadrant they're in. But
exactly.
Still seems kind of difficult. That definitely takes practice, right?
Well, the first one's easy. The first one's really easy. It's just, is this person direct or indirect? Because then you know how to adjust your physical behavior. Yeah, like I'm not going to get too close to this person if they're indirect. I'm not going to go in for a firm handshake if they're indirect. So that one's a really easy question to answer. And they come out the door, the first thing I'm thinking, and I do it subconsciously these days anyway, but is this person direct or indirect? Now, you obviously need to get conversation going before you're going to hear, like, are they open or guarded? Now, one of the ways you could do that, for example, is when I say to someone, how are you today? And they say, yeah, I'm good. Now, that to me is telling me that they're guarded at this point in time. They haven't asked me how I am. So I'm not going to bother trying to create rapport consciously with that person who obviously isn't that open to conversation. Versus someone who says, I say to them, how are you today? And they say, I'm really, really good, thanks. How are you? And they throw the conversation back to me. That shows me that they're open. And then I can maybe start building that more conscious rapport. But that's where I see a lot of people, especially, when I first see people first start out in sales, is that they try to build rapport with every person they meet. But every person they meet isn't open. So they ask a customer at a door, how are you today? And the customer says, yeah, I'm good. And then they say, what have you been up to? And then they say, nothing. And then they say, are you working today? And they say, no, mate, what do you want? It's like they're trying to draw blood from a stone. They're trying to build rapport with someone who's guarded. We've all done it. We've all walked away from the door and been like, I shouldn't have done that. But that main way that I tell if someone's open or guarded is when I ask, how are they ask me back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Yes.
And then depending on what quadrant they're in, like if you find out they're a thinker, you're going to communicate to them more logically, more data driven, more charts and graphs and that type of thing. Is that right?
100%. So I've got, where is it, down here, and I'll send this through to you. I won't read through everything, but it's got like the best approach that you can use when you figure out who these people are. Like say, for an example, if you've got a thinker, this person's come to the door and they haven't come out and shaken your hand. They're a bit more reserved. You've asked them how they are and they say, yeah, I'm good. You can kind of tell based on that, okay, I'm dealing with a person who's a little bit guarded. They're a little bit introverted, indirect. So I'm going to make sure that I fit these ones here. I'm going to focus on the logic. I'm going to give them a warm and friendly greeting, but I'm going to get straight to the task. Give them plenty of time to think, show them documents, point out the pros and cons instead of just pointing out the pros. And I've followed this typically. But it all comes down to those two questions. And that's how you can pretty much, anyone you meet, you can figure out straight away where they kind of sit, and you can build your relationship based on your ability to adapt to them. They're going to feel a lot more comfortable with you a lot quicker.
Can I share something that I heard once from, I was at a seminar. Our church brought on a guest speaker for just a midweek fireside is what they call it, where they come and just talk to the congregation. He was actually talking about the love languages book, and you just reminded me of this. He was a relationship coach, and he said, find out your spouse's love language, right? He's like, if this person loves physical touch and that's what they need, or quality time, for example, if your spouse loves quality time and you just spent all day cleaning the kitchen because you're like, I'm going to do them this huge favor because that's your love language. You're communicating to them how you want to be treated, which, and he says basically what you're doing is you're picking up a medicine ball and you're throwing it at your spouse, and all they're doing is catching a little BB. And you worked really hard to not impress them that much. He's like, wouldn't it be so much better to leave the kitchen a mess, and when they come home, just talk, hey, how was your day? And although you're throwing a teeny little BB at them, they're catching this huge, massive medicine ball, right? And this is exactly what I think you're getting at, right? Is like, treat these people how they interpret the world, and you're going to move mountains with them, rather than trying to be like, hey, I'm a socializer, let's build rapport. And they're like, no, like, I'm just not receiving it. Would you agree? Is that
exactly 100%? I don't know what the coaching is like that you guys get when you start with a company, but in sales, obviously enthusiasm is something that's talking about massively. But I think enthusiasm for a salesperson, if it's expressed the wrong way, can also be a massive turnoff for most people. It just shows that you're just trying to sell to someone. I'm not saying don't be enthusiastic at all. I'm saying it's extremely important, but the way you express that enthusiasm is going to depend on who it is you're speaking with. And the better you get at answering those two questions when you very first meet someone, it's going to give you a better leg to kind of stand on and building rapport with this person.
Awesome.
Cool. So I can send you, there's a bit more with this, but as opposed to me just kind of reading it out to you guys, I'll send it through to you, Betty, and then you can kind of share it with the guys if they want to go through it. And
like this. I think this would be something that we definitely want to go over. This is always something good to go back to. It's the reason why we always did the personality test with teams, because it's always good to think, how are people, how can we relate better? And if we don't know how we are ourselves, it's kind of hard to be adaptable to others, So we've got to be in tune with ourselves a little bit and sort of quantify it a little bit better. And then we can figure out a little bit more how we can better, connect with these people.
100%.
We
appreciate you. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Does anyone?
Yeah, no worries. It's my pleasure.
I wanted to add to what Benny said.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I was just going to say, when Benny was saying that, it's the same thing. It's the same thing about us when we're in sales, when we ask like the customer, like, oh, what is it you like best about the system? If we focus on that, it's so much easier to close the deal. But if they say something like, oh, I love the fact that I'm going to be saving money, and then you start going towards like the warranty and the 25-year production guarantee, it's just stupid. But if you focus on, oh yeah, that's what my other customer said too, and you're saving money and now you're putting more money in your pocket, or whatever it is that they like, even if it's something dumb, if you focus on it, you'll get the deal better.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might focus on the environmental benefits of a solar panel system with a certain personality type, and the money.
Exactly.
I had an old guy where we started talking about how many trees they were going to plant in the environment, and he literally just slammed his hand down on the table and he's like, I don't give a shit about the entire environment. How much am I going to save? And we're like, okay, yeah. We just went to savings, and it was like, throw everything else out the window.
Yeah, I feel like this questions really help us to know what to focus on,
Right.
That's why when Benny talked about those 3 questions to ask I always ask those at the end of every sale, and it has helped me close so many deals by doing that, because you're asking, you're getting them to open up. You're finding the things to focus on instead of just going down rabbit hole tangents that they don't really even give a crap about, why focus on stuff that they aren't as interested about, and find the commonality and just hammer it.
So when you said behaviors can change, elaborate on that a little bit more, because you don't believe that a socializer will always be a socializer.
Remember to grab your receipt.
No, it depends on the circumstances that they're in as well. Like I'm a socializer, but I'm also a director. Yeah. So if I go to a party, yeah, I might start off being a little bit shy to start with. Yeah, I will warm up eventually, but to start off with, if someone were to come and meet me, they wouldn't think that I was that socializer person. Yeah, everyone's got different scenarios that they feel more comfortable in than others, but depending on what's happening in your physical environment at the time, your behavior can change.
Got it. So it could be, and it's not married to your personality, because interestingly, we just had a guy who's writing a book called Personality is Not Permanent. It's coming out in June. He spoke to our team, right? So he was talking about how your personality can change over time. And you said
it definitely does change over time.
Yeah, or it can, it doesn't stay the same.
It's a slow process, but it can definitely. Like, my personality's changed a lot compared to what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So how would you separate the two? I'm still not fully there yet. How would you separate some behavior traits from their personality?
So behavior is the way you act. Yeah, the way you act in a certain scenario. Your personality is basically like it's who you are. Yeah. Now, who you are is obviously going to impulse the way you act, but you're going to act different in multiple different scenarios until they become comfortable to you, and then you're going to be more consistent in them. But say, for example, when you first meet your partner, yeah, your behavior then a little bit different to how it is now when you get home.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Hello? Are you there?
Yeah. So Rich had to jump off. He was just typing that in there.
Oh, all good. No worries.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions about what Dan just went over? Or does anyone have any questions about what it's like to be in Australia, what it's like to sell in Australia, what the door-to-door industry is like in Australia, anything like that?
What is it like in Australia for door-to-door?
What was that, sorry?
What is Australia like in door-to-door?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's very, like, I've sold all around the country, and probably like it is in America as well. It's so different in every state that you go to. Your smaller kind of country towns, the receptions, a lot kind of friendlier and inquisitive than what it is in your bigger cities. Like, I work in Sydney now, and Sydney's had people bashing on their doors for like 30 years now. There is a couple of door-to-door companies, especially in the fundraising side of things as well. Just it really depends on the area. Some areas get absolutely smashed, some areas not so much. So, but for the most part, pretty receptive. Like, you don't get chased down the street with a gun or anything like that. Dogs set onto you and that sort of thing. People are pretty friendly.
Tell us. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for us, your accent, once we hear it in America, we're like, oh, okay, cool. What's this guy got to sell? Let's hear you, mate.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I told him. I was like, you come sell solar here and you're going to kill it, just because people will hear your accent and be like, oh, come.
Man, I'd love to. Yeah. I'd love to come over there. It'd be awesome.
Tell us a little bit about your...
Bloody come down here.
Yeah, I will eventually, man. I'm thinking of coming over for the door-to-door con next year.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's Sam Taggart's thing that he puts on. It's on the door-to-door page. They just did it last January, I think is when it was. Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
Nice.
Dylan, be up on the up and up, bro.
Yeah, wait, I heard bro. Who is that? Is that? Oh, Alex is here without his video.
So these guys can find you on Facebook, right? Dan Williams. So they can still connect with you, right?
Yeah, Dan William. Same on Instagram. I think Instagram's the Dan William.
So
yeah.
Tell us real quick about your business. You're an entrepreneur. You're starting a business, or you're working on a business. Tell us a little bit about it, and where can we find you in 5 years when you're going to be famous? You know what?
Absolutely. So one of my best mates and I, we've been working together for 3 years now, and we've gone and started a business that actually teaches people how to sell. Him and I have learned a lot over the last. We've both been in sales for 10 years between us, and reading and educating is something that's taken us from here to here. For myself, especially when I started in sales, it was a matter of having to make money. I had to make money. So I had to learn the skills that I needed to learn to be able to sell to a high level. And those skills we're packaging, we're putting online, and we want to be able to teach people how to sell around the world instead of just our office here in Sydney. So by the end of, we're actually got a free masterclass that we're doing over 6 weeks. It starts on the 1st of June. If you go to williamwrightacademy.com, you can check it out there and register for that. And we'll have our actual coaching packages ready to sell within the next little bit. There's actually a lot of work that goes into it. I believe we're looking forward to it.
I believe it. I can tell you take pride in what you do, and thank you for sharing with us a little bit of your of what we'll be able to find in your course when we enroll in there, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we'll have to connect soon. And if nobody else has anything else they want to add, Alex, are you good? James, you good? We'll end there.
I appreciate you today to talk with us.
No worries, guys. I hope you took something from it, something you can go and implement today.
Thanks, brother. We'll connect soon.
No worries. Cheers, buddy. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dan.